So, Angela, welcome. So, first of all, how would you explain your job and what you do at PepsiCo, being that it's such a big company?
Yeah, it is a big company. I think that's right. So we're segmented by brand. So I manage PR for the Pepsi brand, which is not only the name on the door, but something you probably all will associate with sports, Super Bowl, some of the biggest music events. I also manage PR for our craft soda brands, which is something new. You may have heard names like Caleb's, Stubborn Soda, 1893, and it's a growing platform for us.
And how much of your job is what would traditionally be called PR, and how much is something else?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a hybrid role. It's PR, and I work very closely with our marketing teams. I think traditional PR is still the bread and butter of everything. When I talk to my parents or my family members, they'll remember what is in the New York Times and what is in the Journal. That's my parents. But when I talk to my college student cousin, he's thinking about what's on Snapchat or what he saw running during the Super Bowl. So it's grown to be a little different than traditional PR.
So definitely a mix of both, you would say.
Yes, for sure.
So how much do you work with traditional media as opposed to just a few years ago when maybe you were starting out at PepsiCo?
Yeah, I think, again, traditional media is the bread and butter, and it will always be very important. But that category has grown, so whereas it may have just been some print reporters, online reporters, bloggers, now it's influencers that we talk about so frequently, and just a wider group of people.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, how often do you work with influencers, and what kinds do you look to work with?
Yeah, every day we work with influencers. When you think about where Pepsi is, we are a lot of places. We are sports, we are music, pop culture, and how people are consuming news about Pepsi and learning about our brands is not only newspapers and online, it's through influencers. It's through who they're following. It's when they open up their Instagram feed, what are their favorite Instagrammers posting about. So it's very important for us.
Can you give us an example of, say, one that you worked with on Instagram or Vine or whatever the case is, where it worked out well for you guys?
Yeah, so I think the Pepsi Emoji campaign was a big one for us on a digital play, if anyone saw it. It was our big platform last summer. And actually, Oxford said that the most used word of the year was actually an emoji, not a word. So speaking in a totally different language. So I think, to that respect, we played in that space, right? The digital space worked with some of the big popular influencers and also celebrities who have a huge reach on social to promote those. And the cans themselves, if you saw them, there are a few hundred different emojis that you could pick up on a Pepsi can, and we used influencers in those to get the message out in a way that I think traditional press release might not have conveyed the message as well.
How did you come up with the idea?
So we have a great design team that sits right here in Tribeca. It was a homegrown idea. They're always innovating. They've come up with some great things. Pepsi Perfect was another one that the team designed here, and we pushed out at Comic-Con a year ago, which was really fun. So they designed the cans, hundreds of them, hundreds of different designs, some related to local markets, your sports team. You could pick up something like that, and then it follows a platform of going to our marketing team and how are we going to sell that out, and PR and what influencers we're going to work with and things like that.
Did you ever worry about emoji fatigue?
Yeah, I think it's a fair one. I think anytime you work with something that's trending, I think we were talking about Pokemon Go before. It's always a question on where will it go next and how long will it last. I think we felt very strongly that emojis were very relevant and are here to stay. As a testament to that, that was last summer was our campaign, and I don't know about you guys, but I use emojis in my text messages, and that same parents that I was talking about who are reading the New York Times are now sending me emojis. So I think I think it was a safe bet, and I'm glad they're around. You use emojis?
I do. Even though I'm at the older end of the millennial spectrum, I try, and I often find I'm using them in really wrong ways. So
Okay.
I have to be careful.
That's the traditional semicolon, comma, cursor, whatever. That always works.
I'm good with those, but then when it gets into how hysterically crying the emoji is supposed to be and what it means, I get a little
Safe
off-center.
bet is always the winky emoji.
The
That's
winky
a
emoji.
good one.
I don't know. Is that a safe bet? I'll be careful. Lesson learned. Anyway, so that's one thing that you guys did last summer. Tell us a little bit about the more, I guess you would say, non-traditional PR, non-traditional communications initiatives that you've been working on.
It's I think one that comes to mind, and I mentioned before, is our craft portfolio. So we're doing some different things for that I think are interesting, and again, we're targeting a different audience. So one of our new brands that's wonderful, if you haven't tried it, it's called Stubborn Soda. A little plug there for you. We just launched this past year, and we're working with Robert Kirkman, who's the creator of The Walking Dead. I don't know if I have any mega fans out there. It's a little different for us when you think about reaching a different audience and something that is different from brand Pepsi and what we're going out to. So what we did for that one is we played in the content space, which I know is huge for so many brands right now, and is a good way to hit that target audience. We went to Comic-Con. We had Robert speak on a panel similar to this to some mega fans. It was also a bit different for us in the media that we reached. I think anytime you're dealing with Comic-Con and playing in that space, there's a very rich demographic there of followers of comic trades and TV entertainment, and obviously we have a huge fan base in The Walking Dead. So it was a bit different and is interesting in how we're pushing out our craft portfolio.
How do you measure success with something like that?
That's a good one. I think for people who have been in PR for a bit, will remember the days of faxing a press release and then, cutting and pasting news clips to do press clippings. But that's changed. I think measuring success is not just that, because the way we interact with media and how they're getting our news is not only writing stories and headlines, but particularly with a product like ours. We're watching them open the product on Snapchat and YouTube video, the first sip of the product. So it's more than just an aggregate of views and headlines. It's sentiment, which is obviously a big thing, and just overall time spent with product in a lot of those pieces.
Why did you pick The Walking Dead?
I mean, I think,
other than the ratings, of course.
Yeah, I think everyone who I don't watch The Walking Dead, but I think I should probably start. I think when we thought about the brand Stubborn and its characteristics, obviously the name might catch people. It's intended to target a demographic who are discerning millennials, so consumers of the show and consumers of the product, we hope. So people who are looking for something a little more premium, something who it's fair trade certified, cane sugar, it has all the good stuff that target demographic likes. Kirkman and his product resonated with that brand. So I think much in the same way as Pepsi is pop culture, The Walking Dead and Kirkman spoke to Stubborn.
Do you ever worry about self-cannibalization with something like that, where you are creating new brands and putting a lot of work into promoting them?
Yeah, I hope it's actually the opposite. As we see shift in consumer consumption and consumer preferences, doing things like this enables us to reach a wider range of audiences. So, and not just for Pepsi. PepsiCo is a portfolio of Gatorade and Tropicana. We have Aquafina, we have Frito-Lay products. So we're always looking to diversify and capture a new audience.
You mentioned reaching the millennial generation, and that's one reason that you did that initiative. What do you find is unique that maybe our audience doesn't know yet about marketing to millennials? Because, I think there are a lot of mischaracterizations about marketing to millennials that you read in the press, whether it's that they don't wake up until noon or whatever the case is. But what do you find is the lesson learned from marketing to that group?
Yeah, I think a big one for us is events as marketing. I think, and this has been written about a bit, is that millennials want to experience things. They like to be the first to experience things. They like to share the experience with their friends. So it's great to talk about your product, but if you can give them an experience and immerse them in that, I think a great example we had was Crystal Pepsi. I don't know if anyone remembers. We made a big comeback, and it was a 90s product. So not something, there were a lot of millennials in the younger spectrum, unlike us, who didn't even know Crystal Pepsi and ended up becoming mega fans of this product because we immersed them in an experience. We had a Summer of '92 fest. And we did have a younger demographic come there who may not have tried the product for the first time, but were so hyped about everything it was about and everything about the 90s. I think the resurgence in 90s culture is obviously a huge one to play into. But having that experience, having them experience, we had a mall set up, like a 90s mall. They had all kinds of hair styling stations and things. It allows them to immerse themselves in it and talk about it.
Biz Marquee.
And Biz Marquee and Lisa Loeb.
Right.
As a personal favorite, En Vogue and Salt and Pepper.
How did you come up with those groups?
It's a good one. I think when you think of the list of 90s artists, there's a lot of good ones. For us, again, the space Pepsi plays in is a lot of pop, top 40 when you think of things like that. I think they're undeniably awesome artists in their own right. And I think when you look across the 4 artists, it was just a smart blend of different types of genres.
Right. I'll spare everybody my rendition of Just a Friend by Biz
We'd
Markie.
like to hear it.
Yeah, maybe not today. So other than millennials, talk to me about how you're reaching more of your, I don't want to say your traditional audience, but your non-millennial audience, the people that you've always been trying to reach.
Yeah, I think I'll go back again to one of our biggest platforms, and that's the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show, which we're the sponsor of for the 4th year. And that's continuing. I mean, it's one of pop culture's biggest moments. It's one of the most viewed events of the year. So that's always going to be an important one for us. It speaks to sports fans and NFL fans, but also everyone watches the Super Bowl, whether you're getting some chips and salsa in between or watching it for the real actual football playing. So I think that's been an important one for us to think about how we're reaching people differently during that. What is the second screen experience? What's a consumer engagement element we can do around the halftime show performer, which we're very excited for this year. But that's
And speaking of TV, one last question. You partnered with Empire. Why Empire?
Yeah, I mean, it's always wonderful when you have the opportunity to partner with one of the most watched and hottest shows of the year. Again, this one made sense for us in terms of who we're trying to target and who the viewership is of the show. At the time, we also partnered with Jussie Smollett, an up-and-coming artist. Pepsi's always been really big about emerging artists, and we have a very strong emerging artist music platform. It was great. We did a spot with him. Lee Daniels filmed it, and it was wonderful. And we're still partnering with Empire again this year, so it's been a good one.
Angela, thanks so much.
Thanks very much.